deer hunter sitting in the woods outside Cherry Valley, New York, on the morning of December 19, 2021, heard something moving behind him. He turned and saw a large animal 15 yards away, nose to the ground, moving toward him. He fired. The animal dropped. When he walked up to it, something was wrong. It was too big, too heavy. The head was too broad. He called the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. An officer came out, measured the animal, and collected a blood sample. The carcass weighed 85 pounds, twice the weight of any coyote he had seen. The state sent the blood to a lab. The lab came back and said it was a coyote. The hunter didn't believe it. Neither did the scientists who looked at the skull. Dependent DNA tests were sent to Trent University in Canada and then to Princeton. Both came back the same. It was a wolf. The state spent 15 months denying it before finally confirming what the hunter suspected the moment he walked up to what he had shot. A wild gray wolf, 25 miles from the Adirondack Park, eating a completely wild diet, carrying Great Lakes wolf DNA, in a state where wolves have had no documented breeding population for over a century. It would mean less if it were the only one. It is not. Between 2018 and 2023, wildlife officers, hunters, and land managers across New York, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Vermont, and Maine logged more than 40 separate accounts describing canids that did not match the eastern coyote profile. Animals too heavy at the shoulder, moving in ways that coyotes do not move. Several accounts came from people who had spent decades in those woods and were not given to exaggeration. A retired wildlife biologist in the Adirondacks described watching an animal cross a frozen lake in the winter of 2022 at a distance of roughly 300 meters. He watched it for 4 minutes through a spotting scope. He did not file a report. He said he knew what it would be filed as. None of these accounts were confirmed. None were formally dismissed. They exist in the category that wildlife agencies place things when the evidence is real enough to record, but not clean enough to act on. Insufficient for verification, which is not the same as insufficient to consider. The animal those accounts describe, if they describe anything real, can only be one thing: Canis lupus, the gray wolf. An animal that was systematically hunted, trapped, and poisoned out of every square mile of the eastern United States over the course of roughly 150 years. An animal whose last confirmed eastern population outside of the Great Lakes region was documented in the 1920s. An animal that, by every official range map currently published by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, does not exist east of the Great Lakes. The question is not whether wolves once lived in these forests. The question is whether they are moving back into them. And the further the evidence is examined, the harder it becomes to say with confidence that the answer is simply no. The geography matters here, and it is closer than most people assume. The nearest established wolf population to the eastern seaboard is not in Yellowstone or the northern Rockies. It is in the Great Lakes region, where a population of gray wolves centered in northern Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota has been growing steadily for 3 decades. The wolf population in the Great Lakes area has grown to approximately 4,500 individuals. That is not a remnant. That is a recovered population pressing against the limits of what its current landscape can hold. Wolf populations under pressure disperse. This is not theory. It is the documented mechanism by which the species has always expanded its range. Young males in particular, pushed out of established territories at 2 to 3 years of age, will travel distances that challenge easy belief. A wolf designated OR7 by Oregon wildlife managers crossed from northeastern Oregon into California in 2011, covering more than 1,000 miles before establishing the first confirmed California wolf territory in nearly a century. A Michigan wolf, radio-collared in 1999, was tracked moving south before being shot in Missouri in 2001, more than 600 miles from where it was born. A wolf with a mixture of Great Lakes, Northwest Territories, and eastern gray wolf strains was confirmed in New York in 2022. These are not anomalies. They are the species doing what the species does when there is space on the other side and pressure building from behind. The eastern landscape those wolves would be moving into is not the landscape that was cleared of them. The great deforestation of the 19th century has partially reversed. Farmland across New England and the mid-Atlantic that was stripped bare by 1900 has been returning to forest for the better part of a century. Between 1930 and 2000, forest cover in the eastern United States increased from just 10% to nearly 40%. White-tailed deer populations across the eastern United States are at historic highs, with wildlife agencies in Pennsylvania, New York, and West Virginia actively managing overpopulation. The prey base that would support a wolf population is not thin. It is, by most measures, excessive. The forest has come back, the deer have come back. The one variable still officially absent is the wolf. The genetics add a layer to this that the range maps do not capture. Studies of canid DNA across the northeastern United States have consistently found wolf ancestry in the eastern coyote population. New York coyotes average around 65% coyote, 25% wolf, and 10% domestic dog. The animal hunters and trappers have been calling a coyote in these states carries measurable gray wolf and eastern wolf genetics absorbed through hybridization events that occurred as coyotes expanded east through Ontario in the early 20th century. What that means is that wolf genes are already in the eastern ecosystem. They did not disappear when the wolves did. They survived in a diluted form inside the animal that filled the vacancy. The question of whether wolves are returning to the east is, in part, a question of what degree of wolf the east already contains. The skeptic's position here is reasonable, and it deserves a direct answer. No wolf has been confirmed east of the Great Lakes outside of isolated dispersal events. The Cherry Valley animal, confirmed as it was, represents a single dispersing individual, not a population. The accounts from Pennsylvania and the Adirondacks are exactly what wildlife agencies say they are, unverified. The tracks a trapper photographs in mud are not a pack. Misidentification of large eastern coyotes, which regularly run 40 to 60 pounds in the Northeast, accounts for a significant portion of these reports. People see what they are looking for, and a culture that grew up on wolf mythology will find wolves in ambiguous shadows. All of that is fair. But conceding, it does not settle the question. It only clarifies what the question actually is, not whether a confirmed breeding wolf population exists in the eastern United States right now. It almost certainly does not, but whether the conditions under which one could establish itself have ever been more clearly in place. A recovered source population of 4,500 animals centered 400 miles to the west. A dispersal mechanism documented to cover more than 1,000 miles. A prey base at historic abundance. A forest that has been quietly rebuilding itself for 100 years. And a monitoring system across the rural east that is, in the honest assessment of the biologists who work within it, nowhere near sufficient to detect a small number of animals that do not want to be found. Wolves are among the most difficult animals on Earth to confirm at low densities. They cover enormous ground. They avoid humans with a precision shaped by centuries of being hunted by them. A single dispersing male moving through the mountains of West Virginia or the forests of the Adirondacks would leave nothing behind that a casual survey would find. It would kill deer. It would move on. It would leave tracks that a hunter might photograph and submit to an agency that would file the images under inconclusive and move on. The state of New York spent 15 months telling the public that the Cherry Valley animal was a coyote. It took 2 independent university laboratories and a coalition of 37 conservation organizations signing a formal letter before the Department of Environmental Conservation acknowledged what the hunter already knew when he walked up to that carcass in the December snow. The animal is now mounted and on display at the New York State Museum in Albany. The skull sits beside a coyote skull for comparison. The difference is not subtle. What is subtle is everything that happens after an animal like that is confirmed, and the agencies responsible for managing it decide that the most appropriate response is 15 months of silence. Out there, in the second-growth forests of the eastern United States, in the deer woods of Pennsylvania, and the logged ridges of West Virginia and the lake country of the Adirondacks, something is moving that the official maps say should not be there. It may be nothing more than a large coyote casting a long shadow in the way that large coyotes do. It may be exactly what the people who saw it believe it was. What is known as this: 4,500 wolves are living 400 miles to the west in a landscape that is full. The forests to the east are returning. The deer are there in numbers that could support a predator that has not been seen in a century. And the same mountains that were emptied of wolves within living memory are not being watched closely enough to know with certainty what is, or is not, moving through them at night. The Cherry Valley wolf is mounted in a museum in Albany. The hunter who shot it thought he was shooting a coyote. The state told him for 15 months that he was right. He wasn't. Whatever else is out there in those forests has not made the same mistake of walking up to a hunter on a December morning. It is moving at night in the places no one is watching, through a landscape that is more ready to receive it than it has been in 100 years. And the maps that say it cannot be there were last drawn by people who were not looking closely enough.